Hello, everybody, and welcome to my channel. Today, I've got a special guest, Jeff from Frizzell Productions. How are you doing, Jeff?
Good, Mike. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, man, thank you for coming. I appreciate it big time.
Not a
I'm
problem.
always late to the party, and so I just found your channel uh, recently and started watching it and was like just totally blown away with all the really cool videos that you have visiting resting places and different Hollywood, you know, type stuff, including one of my favorite, like some true crime, like mafia type stuff. So I was, yeah, immediately just drawn to the channel, man. That's really neat, really.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So, reached out to you, and man, you've so graciously agreed to talk with me, and we'll talk about your channel also, man. We'll pull that up, but I think a good starting place may be just like, how did you even get into, meeting up with so many Hollywood personalities and stuff like that?
Well, a lot of it was I always was interested in history and Hollywood growing up, and I thought that it would be really cool to kind of get to know how Hollywood works, how a lot of people were behind the camera. And I started writing letters when I was a kid to a lot of the old school legends that people had forgotten about. People like Dom DeLuise, Kirk Douglas, people like that were big stars in their day, but have kind of been forgotten about as they got older in age. And they kind of got excited about hearing from somebody who's young that actually wanted to hear about their career. And I would ask them questions about their careers, people that they worked with. And they would, a lot of them wrote me back personal letters, answering my questions, telling me stories that, haven't been published or anything like that. So it was a pretty neat thing. And then I started going out to LA when I was about 16 years old. And some of them were, Dom DeLuise was one of the first ones. He said, if you ever come into town, look me up. And, at the time, I kind of was calling their bluff because I didn't know if they were actually meant it, because people say, look me up, and they don't mean it. So, I did it. And, I just knocked on their door and I told them, I introduced myself and told them who I was. And, I never had a bad experience with that. I was always invited in, and they would offer me food or drinks or whatever else, and they would just share stories of old time Hollywood. And Ed Asner was another one that did that. Sherwood Schwartz, people that a lot of people today would say, well, who is that? And then you'd tell them some of the story or some of the shows and some of the movies they've done, and then it rings a bell. But it's a lot of people that have kind of been forgotten about.
Wow. I was going to pull up your picture with Dom DeLuise real fast.
Oh yeah, that was taken in his kitchen.
Wow. I mean, that's pretty neat, man, to get that kind of access to someone like that. I mean, that's really cool that he was, so receptive to it, because I'm sure they get people that they don't want coming to visit and everything.
Oh,
I
I'm
mean,
sure.
so
And especially nowadays with this, the way people treat fame is a little bit different today, and the world isn't the same as it was. So, you wouldn't really want random people just showing up at your door. And I can't imagine too many people today would respond back and say, hey, I don't know you, aside from a couple of letters, stop by. And, I
yeah,
can't
just
imagine
come
that
to
would
my
happen.
kitchen.
Yeah, I
Right.
can't imagine that would happen much today.
It's just so incredible, man. I'm gonna pull up another one here, and this was a
Yeah,
very interesting too
Bert.
with Bert. Yeah.
Now, towards the end of his life, he started having, I mean, he had financial problems for a long time, but he started doing a lot of autograph shows. And I made friends with somebody who was one of his agents at the time. And he was doing some autograph shows in the Chicago area. And they actually asked me to sit with them for a couple of days and kind of help as a handler, kind of make sure that he didn't do anything stupid or
Wow.
upset anybody or anything like that. But
Really?
he was so everybody I saw that came up to meet him, he was nice. He was warm. He would tell people stories. Very opposite of the people that talked about how when they worked with him back in the day, how arrogant he was. And I never saw any of that, at least later in life.
Really? Wow, wow, yeah, that's interesting because there were a lot of stories of people saying stuff like that who had worked with him or whatever. But
Oh, yeah. I never
that's
saw that side of him.
that's very interesting. See, and I mean, I think some of these people may like you feel the genuineness of you. You know, what I mean, that you gave off, and probably feel like this guy's genuinely a good person. Maybe that's what they read and
I
were
hope so.
I bet that's what it is because I don't think everybody that wrote these people got the invites or got to, hang out with Bert like that. You know what I'm
Oh,
saying?
I'm sure not.
So yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, here's another one uh, right here.
Yep, that was Sherwood Schwartz. He was I believe he was the writer and creator, or maybe just the creator of Gilligan's Island, Brady Bunch. He did a lot of classic shows, and he had a really nice house up in the Hollywood Hills. And he responded with a letter one time and basically said the same thing. If you ever want to stop by, go ahead and do that. And I don't know if it was his housekeeper, somebody, we knocked on the door and told them who we were, and they let us in. And she's like, oh, here's his art gallery. And they had like Picasso's and all this other stuff in the walkway. And it's like, where else do you see that kind of stuff aside from at a museum?
I mean, it's incredible. Honestly, man, it's the most incredible. I hope you're writing a book, man. That's the most incredible thing to have an experience like that with somebody. Just you know, that guy. I grew up on all those shows that you're mentioning. I mean, those were my, Gilligan's Island. Those type of shows. Those were great, man. I watched every. I guarantee I've seen every episode. So
Yeah,
that's
that's
really cool.
classic. That's classic Hollywood.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And so, in meeting these different celebrities and Hollywood personalities, um, are there any of them that stood out more than others that you really, really were like, wow, this, became really close with as far as friends or anything like that?
There have been people that I've become friendly with over time. As far as bigger stars, that doesn't happen a whole lot, but over the years, I've gotten along pretty well with people like Matt Damon. I worked with him on a project, and
Wow,
he took everybody out for chicken wings on the day that everybody wrapped.
is that
And
right?
just a really good guy. But a lot of these people, they become acquaintances. You see them here, you see them there, you'll see them at an award show, but you don't really stay in touch. You might get their phone number, but you never really want to use it. uh,
Yeah, yeah.
it's
No, I got you.
Yeah, like I've had a couple pretty well-known people's numbers in my cell phone, but I've never actually called them. But then I'll see them out and about somewhere when I go out to LA, and they'll say, "Hey, I remember you," or something like that. And it's like, you because you can make that contact, but you think 3 months down the road they're not going to remember me.
Yeah, but that's awesome that they did. And you know what? That's a smart move, not just calling and being like, "Hey, Matt, remember the chicken wings?" or
Well,
whatever.
yeah, it's one of those kind of things that you don't want to, go out with some of your friends or something like that and say, "Hey, I have this person's number. Let's call them and bother them." And
Yeah,
a lot of those people will do it, and then you'll find out they changed their number tomorrow.
right, right. Or you've been blocked or something like that. While
Yeah,
they
I mean, you don't want to get to that point. You'd rather remember you in a
definitely
good light and be happy to see you than somebody that is tired of hearing from you.
right, that you just called. Yeah, man. And that's another thing. I'm sure that's why you ended up with their numbers. They can read that. But how about do you have any funny stories about anybody? I don't mean anything bad. I mean just something along the lines with anybody
There
that
have
stand out.
been moments where I've seen people a lot more intoxicated than they should have been. There's been moments that I've witnessed things that I probably shouldn't have.
Okay.
A lot of people have gotten away with things legally that they probably shouldn't have. The more time you spend out there, the more things you see, and the more you get kind of in the um, the inner loop, I guess, of it, the more things you're kind of exposed to. Um, I was always kind of curious about how Hollywood worked. And when I started getting invites to things like film premieres and things like that, There were places back in the day. I'm not sure if it's quite the same way now because it's been probably 10 years or so since I was actively going to a lot of that kind of stuff. But you would walk into certain rooms and there'd be drugs out on the table. And I don't know if things are as open with that now as they were back then. But things people used to get away with a lot more than they seem to now.
Yeah. I mean, I'm guessing the amount of cameras nowadays, everybody with a cell phone filming stuff
Well, that's
probably.
just it too, because 10, 15 years ago, that wasn't as big of a thing. People could go out, they could do whatever they wanted to do. But now they have a constant fear of, am I going to be recorded? Am I going to end up on TikTok? And,
Right.
so people they don't go out as much as they once did. I used to go out in LA and I would go to, the Beverly Glen Deli or something like that just to get lunch. And you'd see 3, 4, 5 big name celebrities in there. And the last time I was in there a couple months ago, crickets. They don't seem to go out as much as they used to because the paparazzi is a lot more plentiful than it used to be. And everybody has a cell phone camera and everybody posts everything they take.
Right. Immediately. Yeah, that's right. They don't even have time to say, "Excuse me, would you not do?" That's up.
No,
Yeah.
and even if they do, even if there's been moments where I've seen people say or their handlers say to somebody, "Can you please delete that?" And they will, but then they'll recover the file later that day and they'll still post it.
Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, that. Yeah, that's probably what knocked all that back for sure. Because there, you can't go out in public. You're on camera somewhere, just walking out
Yeah,
of your house. I mean,
you can't. I mean, a lot of these people they have, they live in the mansions, they have everything they need. If they want to get their hair cut, their barber comes to them, all that kind of
sure.
stuff that, you and I don't have the ability to do. It's at their disposal.
Right. So they live in their own world and don't need
Yeah.
anything. Right.
If
If
they
they
don't
don't.
have to, yeah, if they don't have to leave, they don't.
Right. I don't know why that reminded me of this, but of Marlon Brando having cheeseburgers thrown over the uh thrown over the wall, or whatever.
Oh yeah. He was an interesting character too. I never got to see him, but I've known people that have ran into him out in LA back in like the mid 90s. And I guess he was one of those kind of people that if you ran into him, he wanted nothing to do with people.
Is
Like
that
he would
right?
just stonewall you and walk right by you like you didn't exist.
Wow. I wonder if he was always like that, or if, like, dealing with bad people made him like that.
It sounded like he was really difficult to work with on set. So it sounds like it's something that just kind of went to his head and maybe never went away.
Right. He just kept it with him. Okay,
Yeah.
got you. Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of stories, things like that as well. Um, another thing I was going to ask you is, so you were talking about going to the premieres and stuff like that.
Mhm.
How did you get into doing that type of thing?
Well, if we go all the way back, when I was 16, I went out to LA for the first time and I got to know a guy that was he was an autograph dealer actually, and he seemed to know the town really well. He knew a lot of people. He was pretty well connected, or so it seems. But it turns out that he was kind of a schmuck. And when we went out there, he brought about 8 of us out there, and he said, I have access to the Academy Awards. Let's go. And he basically, when we got there, everybody rented tuxedos and, the women had dresses and all that kind of stuff. And he basically said he rented this really crappy van that was the transmission blew on it during the trip. And he ended up dropping us off about 3 blocks away from, they had it at the Dorothy Chandler Pavilion back then. And he dropped us to like the end of where the security checkpoint was and basically just left the van there. And he said, well, we're here. And everybody, they jumped out and went their own way. And so, yeah, we went to the Oscars, but there was no invite, no tickets, no nothing.
Oh,
And we went to there was a hotel, the West Bonaventure Hotel, and we went and watched some of the ceremony from the hotel, and we were all kind of bummed out. And then we kind of said, we're here, why not just go up and see what we can see, how close we can get. And around the time that the place broke up and the event started to end, We walked right to the red carpet, walked down the red carpet and inside the building. And once we got in the building, the first two people I saw were Edward Norton and Drew Barrymore. And we just kind of started networking our way in there. And we talked to a handful of people in there, and we were, we were kind of rookies to it. So we saw some people that we liked, and we're getting pictures with them and that kind of stuff. And that's kind of how it all started. And every time I went back after that, I would just try to network more, and eventually invites would come in, and somebody would say, "Hey, I have an extra ticket to this premiere. Do you want to go?" Or, that networking was always really key out there.
That's incredible, man. I mean, the thought of that that sounds like a movie, man. You show up and the
Yeah.
guy drops you off. That's
And there's no way you could do that now, because now if you go anywhere near the Oscars now, they have it at the Kodak Theater in Hollywood. If you are within about a half-mile radius of it, you're getting stopped. And
yeah, I would imagine.
yeah, you need to have tickets to not only get you into the Oscars, but you need you need passes to even get past the first security checkpoint.
Right, right. I saw an incident where I don't even, this may have been a music fest, and it may not even been a bigger one, where someone was trying to drive through. It was a famous rapper, and they were trying to stop him there, and he got into it with them, and it was and it was caught on camera, obviously, but he couldn't even get through, you know what I mean? And he had like a
No. And
top
the funny thing is, there will be events now where the celebrities themselves will forget their credentials, and they're denied at the door.
Is that right?
You
Wow.
see things like that. There was a show that I went to. It was there was some reality TV show where they put together a super band with like Tommy Lee and all those kind of guys. One of the guys that was in the band for that thing got shut out at the door outside because they didn't know who it was.
Oh my gosh.
They're
Can you
like, you
imagine?
don't have a pass, you don't belong here. And the guy's like, I'm on the show in 15 minutes.
Yeah. Well, they're going to be missing a drummer.
Yeah,
Or whatever.
he had to bring the security supervisor out to identify who he was.
Oh my gosh, man. I mean, hey, the guy did his job, but I'm sure afterwards it was a little embarrassing for him.
Yeah, you'd kind of think that if something like that was happening, that they would at least give security a picture of the four guys in the band and say these guys are, because a lot of those guys, especially back then, they didn't carry their passes all the time. They assumed everyone knew who they were. You had like Tommy Lee in the band, you had guys from Guns N' Roses in the band, and it's they probably assume that everyone on the strip knows them.
Right, right, yeah, and I mean, and then it may be a major hit to the ego, man, to get there, and the
Yeah, it's
person
like
doesn't.
we don't know who you are, you can't come in.
Exactly. Oh man, I'm gonna pull up this one picture here.
Oh yeah, that's at the Oscars when I was 16. That was on the red carpet, and a guy came up behind me, and we were taking a picture in front of this statue, and a guy tapped me on the shoulder, and he's like, "That picture would look better if you held this." And he just
Wow.
handed me his Oscar, and we took a couple pictures. And he was a guy that won that year for, I think, best. What was it? Best visual effects or something like that. It wasn't a big name. It was a behind the scenes guy.
Right.
But I always thought that was cool. And that was 16 years old. And, everybody at my high school was worried about going to prom and all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of what I was
yeah, man,
being interested in.
That is cool as can be, man. I mean, holy smokes, man. That's going from being stuck at the broke down van at the end with no credentials to actually holding one and taking a picture on the red carpet.
That was definitely different than what I expected. Because when all the van stuff happened, I thought, oh well, this trip's going to be a bust. There's there's going to be no point, no stories, no nothing. And if we hadn't went back over there, it's hard to tell which direction things would have went from there. I may have never went back and may have lost the interest in doing any of this stuff.
Sure, an initial experience to anything probably can shape the way you feel about it and whether it's something you want to continue doing or not.
Oh yeah.
Oh man, but hey, you made it happen. That's really cool, man. Here's another one. Now I like this guy's. This is pretty cool, man.
Oh yeah, Randy Quaid.
Right, right, man. That now this one was at an event, right?
Yeah, that was at something called Fan Expo. Every a couple times a year, they have these events where celebrities will show up and meet the fans and all that. And sometimes I don't always understand the appeal of people paying for autographs or pictures with people. But when it comes to somebody that's been in a lot of things that you grew up on, and Randy Quaid, he has been a recluse for a lot of years.
Yeah,
I believe he moved to Canada for a lot of years. Nobody saw him in public for 10 or 15 years. And then all of a sudden it came out that he's going to make appearances at these three events. And I thought, I have to go to this because, when else are you going to see the guy?
yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, hilarious, funny guy. I never
Oh, yeah.
realized how big he was, man.
I
Jeez.
didn't either. It was kind of startling walking in there because it's like you see them on TV and they appear to be a certain size, but like Chevy Chase isn't a small guy either.
No, no.
And looking at him on TV, you'd think, okay, these people are probably 5'10", maybe 6 feet tall, but Chevy Chase I think is, I don't know, 6'3",
I
six
think
four
he's
maybe,
six
and
three, 6'4" is what I
yeah,
believe.
I mean
Yeah,
he's a lot taller guy than you'd expect.
right. So how tall was Randy Quaid?
He was probably an inch taller than that, maybe two.
That's what
I
I was
mean, he
gonna
seemed
say
like a
because
big guy.
yeah, yeah, because in the movie he's a little bit taller than Chevy, and I'm thinking,
Yeah,
man, he's got to be a holy smokes, man. Good God,
yeah.
here's another one from that also, right?
Oh
From
yeah,
the same.
Christy Brinkley. Yep,
Yeah.
it was a National Lampoon's reunion, and
Okay.
Chevy Chase was supposed to be at that event, but he bailed on it at the last minute. He said that he was sick. But Chevy Chase is one of those kind of guys, like he's mellowed with age, and he's fairly cool now. But back in the day, he used to be, he would torment people on the set. He was rude to fans. He was one of the, I mean, I ran into him out in LA years and years and years ago. And I approached him like a fan because, I kind of geeked out when I saw him. And I just told him it was cool seeing him out, and I told him how much I loved watching his movies, and he told me to F off.
Oh no, man. Jeez. Yeah, that'll
But
leave a sour taste, man.
yeah, and it did for years. And I actually just ran into him again about 2 years ago, and I didn't tell him about that, but it was another event, and I talked to him for a little bit, and he was. I have a guy that I know that represents him, and he was opening up a Raising Cane's restaurant around here, and he was they were doing a commercial, and he was going to be Clark Griswold, and they were lighting up the lights at Raising Cane's instead of the Griswold house. So I talked to him for a few minutes there, and he was nice as could be that day. And
Oh,
I didn't, you don't, when things like that happen, you don't want to bring it up.
no.
Hey,
That's like
you were a jerk to me, 15 years ago, and I never forgot it.
pay to go to the autograph session, go over there, tell him off, and then walk off.
I
No.
know people that have done that.
Is that right? Oh
Yeah.
man, I bet. Yeah, man. I think that's why some people are nervous about approaching, celebrities or famous people because they're worried of their reaction. They
Yeah, you
just
really
don't
don't know
know.
how they're going to react because some people really like being out in public. And then there's other people that are really nice people. But if you ran into them on a bad day, there's a lot of people, a lot of famous people, you wouldn't really think this, but have really bad social anxiety.
Sure.
I know Jim Carrey's one of them. Dan Aykroyd has moments where he has issues with that. So some of these people, they can be the nicest person in the world, but if they're having a bad day or having anxiety issues, and you run into them and they don't seem very friendly to you, that person is going to go out and tell everybody they know. They're going to make a big post, make
Right.
a big deal about it,
Yeah.
and then those people are probably not going to go out as much.
Right.
And some of those guys like Jim Carrey, you never see pictures of him out.
Yeah. And people that's the other thing that people don't consider is how that person's doing that day. Maybe they
Mhm.
lost someone close to them, or maybe
Oh
they
yeah,
just straight up have anxiety issues. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Where it freaks them out, or maybe they have germ issues. Like, there's some guys that don't want to touch people and things like that.
Yeah, and some people are dealing with breakups. Some people are dealing
Right.
with divorces. Some people are dealing with bankruptcy lawyers, and you
Yeah.
just don't know health issues.
Sure.
You never know.
Right.
So it's one of those kind of things that if you do encounter somebody and they're not very nice to you, it may be who they are as a person, but it also may just be that they're not having a good day.
Right. Things are just. I used to train boxers, and we would have all kinds of different fighters come in, and most of these guys, the guys that would come in from out of town were big names, and you just never. They were just people, man. And like
Mhm.
some days, you'd have some guys that were super nice, and you have some guys that didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to sign stuff or
Oh yeah.
things like. And people would be waiting to get pictures from them or autographs, and some of these guys are uh training for a fight that's
Mhm.
a big thing. They're just focused. That I don't think they're trying to be rude or anything. They're just so in their head. And then some guys are just doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's the same kind of thing for actors because there'll be 100 fans lined up on the sidewalk outside of a film or TV set, and they'll think someone's a jerk for not coming over, but in their head they're walking back and forth learning their lines for the next shoot.
Right, right.
And people don't realize that it's not always on their mind that they do have a job to do still.
Yeah,
And people kind of need to remember that's why they are who they are, because they're learning their lines, they're training for a fight, they're rehearsing for an album or something
sure.
else.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's their job. If you walked into NASA and started talking to somebody who was trying to get something going that was important, they may not stop and just talk with you right
No,
then. Yeah,
and you wouldn't really expect them to either, unless there's people out there that have that definitely think that they have earned it just by being a fan.
right.
And that doesn't really translate to, you know is this am I annoying this person, am I affecting this person's ability to do their job?
Right. Yeah, I think that's the number one thing is people need to take the time just to put themselves in the other person's shoes and think about the fact they're working. Maybe it's not a good time to approach them or whatever.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I think that's the number one thing. You know, another thing that you're into, well, there's a couple of them I really want to touch on, but one of them is true crime, man. Uh, Mob stuff. I'm going to pull up one picture here. That
Oh
was
yeah.
pretty dang cool, man. Have you always been into true crime mafia stuff or
Oh yeah, I've always been curious about finding different locations. I grew up not too far outside of Chicago, so all the stuff around there is Al Capone and the Chicago outfit and all that
outfit?
kind of stuff. So
Yeah,
I wanted, some of the first things that I did were tracking down where Al Capone was buried and where all the gangsters were buried, and then where the St. Valentine's massacre happened. And, I started tracking down some of these locations, and there's still a lot of them that I want to do. But, the true crime stuff has always been fun, but it's harder to do those videos just because of the nature. They're touchy topics, especially things that have happened more recently.
sure.
And a lot of times people don't really want to watch them, or they don't want to get into the story. But, it's, no matter how evil history is, it still should be remembered, or at least I think it should be, because
Yeah,
it's in the history books. It was still important what happened, when it happened, why it happened. And
right,
the uh, the mafia stuff has always been kind of intriguing.
right. Yeah, no, it to me it's huge. So I'm gonna pull up a couple here, and you actually I watched your video. First of all, everybody go over to Frizel, right? I'm pronouncing it right again.
Phrasal Productions.
Phrasal, Phrasal Productions, and subscribe, which I mean, I'm sure everybody in the world subscribe. It's awesome, man. But your videos, man, they're really cool. And I had heard the story about Al Capone, And then when I watched your video the other day about him being moved, it really explained it.
Hmm.
Uh, tell me a little bit about that one, man. That's really
Well,
that was a
he
cool
was
story.
originally buried in Mount Olivet Cemetery in just outside of Chicago, and I believe his dad, I think, was buried there, and then they were all moved to the family plot. This is yeah, that's the original stone, and they still have it there. People have vandalized it though; they've knocked it over. As you can see, they kind of scratched out the face plates on it.
Wow.
But I guess the cemetery was afraid of vandals and weirdos coming into the cemetery, so I believe, they requested to have him moved, and then they went to Mount Carmel Cemetery, which is where he's at with the rest of his family. And there's a lot of other gangsters there. Frank Nitty's there, just a handful of plots down from him. A bunch of his old enemies from the Chicago gangster days are also in the same cemetery. Dennis Farina is in the cemetery, so it's a yeah. Sam Giancana, he's there. I didn't know was there, and I'd think, is this the same guy? And then I'd research it and realize that the Jenna brothers are all there, or Jaime
Wow.
Weiss is there, and all these other people. They're all in the same place. It's like they were shooting at each other back in the day, and now they're all buried right next to each other.
Resting together, huh? Yeah,
Yeah, it's
man.
kind of weird.
I had never heard that, man. I did until I saw your video, and I watch a lot of. I'm really intrigued by cemeteries
I
and the
am
different.
too.
Have you always been like that, or is it something you just
Yeah,
got into?
way before I started doing videos, I would visit, like going back to Hollywood. I There were a couple cemeteries there that I would always go to. It was Forest Lawn, Hollywood Hills, Pierce Brothers, Westwood Memorial, and Hollywood Forever Cemetery. And between those three places, that's where most of the Hollywood legends buried in the Los Angeles area are.
Hmm.
And every time I would go out there, I would visit those places. I would occasionally take some pictures, but just kind of take it in. And every time you'd go out there, there'd be new people buried there. And it would just be kind of fun to try to find where they're at and
Right.
see what their stones look like or what the mausoleums look like. And then after a while, I started thinking, and this was before I watched YouTube or knew that other people were doing similar things. I just thought, I should take video of this, because especially with the homes that a lot of the old school stars lived in, you go out there one year, you go out there the next year, and the place is bulldozed and there's something else being built there.
Right.
So some of it is kind of trying to preserve history a little bit too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible. I love visiting and seeing the different statues, the stones, the mausoleums.
Oh
It's
yeah.
just very interesting to me. Uh my dad's side of family was Sicilian, and we went to a lot of funerals, and it was a big deal. So um I grew up going to a ton of funerals, and I was always interested in the different stones and the statues and everything. So to me, I enjoy anytime I visit somewhere, I go look at uh, you know, the I look at the what cemeteries are stand out or whatever.
Yeah, I do the same thing. And, people like seeing the famous graves, the cemetery tours of famous people, historical people, but everybody has a story. And you could find something interesting about everyone buried in a specific cemetery. It's
Right.
whether or not you can find the information, but everybody's done something.
Sure. I mean, some of the ones that I'm just going to pull up a couple. Some of these I can't see them real good because the little things are so small. So I don't know sometime which ones. Oh, okay. There we go. Sugar Ray Robinson. Yeah, there's a famous one.
Yep, he's in Inglewood. That's
Okay.
pretty close to LAX airport.
Right, right. Um, the videos that you have on Bela Lugosi, man, geez, man. Uh,
I'm actually working on another one right now from the apartment where he died at.
is that
It's
right?
it's it still exists. It still looks exactly the same as it did when he died in the 50s. But the neighborhood that it's in is nowhere near as good as what I would imagine it was then.
Hmm.
So I can't imagine that place is probably going to be around too much longer. That's one of those places that I did the video this last trip because I figured, if it's demolished by next time, that's more history lost.
Right, right, for sure. Yeah, because I mean that he's like the godfather of scary horror films or whatever you want to call
Yeah.
it. But yeah,
And the weird
just
thing is, he actually died pretty much broke. He lived
right.
in mansions for most of his life, and then he died in like a one bedroom, one bath apartment. And the weird thing about him is, I don't think he ever owned a car either. And he used to walk to a cigar shop on Hollywood Boulevard every day to buy one cigar, and that would be his exercise for the day. But every day he would walk to the same cigar shop.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I guess it was probably a became almost like a routine type thing. Probably
Yeah.
also that he did just like drinking coffee in the morning or whatever. I guess so.
Yeah, I would
That's
imagine so, but that seemed to be one of the things that he really enjoyed doing, and he did it every day.
very interesting. Well, how old was he? Was he older?
That's a good question. Yeah, he was older. The weird thing is he was, well, let's see, 56,
Six,
70,
right at 70 something.
yeah, 74,
Okay.
if I'm
So I
doing my
mean, for
math right.
somebody who smoked cigars and
Yeah,
that's
and he had drug issues too. I think he was one of the first stars that actually went into rehab.
mm, is that right?
I
Wow.
think so.
Okay. Okay.
But
Wow.
yeah, he struggled with a lot of issues.
Just just classic. I mean, I've got some DVD like whenever I travel, we usually bring our camper, and I've got DVDs that are like old school ones of just stuff with Bela Lugosi and stuff like that. And I just hearing the voice and everything's awesome, and I love playing
Oh yeah,
those.
you don't you don't see stuff like that anymore.
No, no, it's really really cool, man. Very cool. I'm gonna pull up a couple other ones here. Rick James.
Oh yeah, he's buried in New York.
Okay, okay. And then this one was pretty. This one's neat. Now, see, these are the ones. The one I'm gonna pull up right now. That when I see them, I just sit there at all and look at them and everything else. I think this one stuff like this.
Oh
Man,
yeah, that's one that not a lot of people even know about. That's kind of a haunted legend in Chicago. It's Rose Hill Cemetery. She was a girl that died at 16, and I want to say it was typhoid.
okay,
And people say that the glass fogs up and that the statue disappears and all that kind of stuff. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of that stuff is actually condensation from bad weather or whatever else.
sure,
But a lot of people seem to think that there's a lot of paranormal stuff that goes on with this particular gravesite.
right. Wow, yeah, I saw one that was, and I don't know. I don't think it was this one. I believe the one that I saw it was on another channel, and he was saying that the statue disappeared during storms. Maybe she had passed from lightning or something,
Was
or
that the Inez Clark one?
I don't.
The
I
statue looks pretty similar.
it does look similar. That's why I'm thinking maybe it was a neat story and everything though. Let me see which one this is. That one's another one
Oh
that's really
yeah,
cool.
that one's in Evanston, Illinois. That he was, I want to say, 9 years old when he passed, and his dad was founder of the Healy Harp Company in Chicago. So they had quite a bit of money, but obviously they were, pretty devastated when that happened, and they built a pretty interesting monument.
I mean, that's incredible, man. It
Yeah,
really
you don't
is.
see
That's
much. You don't see much like that,
no, not at
and
all.
really nothing anymore like that.
No, I was at a I was at a graveyard or cemetery setting up for this was years ago. Like we had to go check a plot for a family member or something like that. And as they drove us around to market and everything, um, they were showing us different ones. Well, there was one where there was a baseball player who bought it, and it was basically a little island that had a fence around it and stuff, and he had bought it for his family. And it had water that came from the little river that went through and stuff. It was neat, but
That is neat. Do you remember who that was?
it was an Astro, and I can get the name for you. I can't remember right off, but it was one of the bigger Astros that's
Okay.
probably from the 90s. But I'll get
Okay.
it for you. I'll get the info.
Yeah, I'd
and
be
everything.
curious to know that.
Yeah, I go over there pretty regular, and so I will definitely do that and send you a picture of it also because it's really neat. It really is. Here's one now. I think this is now
Oh,
here's a
Dusty
local one.
Hill.
Yes, yes.
He
That's
has
really
a really interesting setup there. I mean, it's that only shows part of it, but he has a really impressive site. It's a private area. It's in a locked gate,
uh-huh.
but yeah, he has a pretty impressive spot there.
Right. I saw you have it on a video, right? I think I
That
snapped
one,
that
yeah,
on.
I think I put a picture of it in a video.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, and it has it's like a rounded fence
Yeah,
around it or something like
yeah,
that.
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna go check that one out. That's neat. Now here's one. This was an interesting story that I watched on your channel was about this guy here.
Oh yeah, Richard Poncher. That's
Holy smokes, man.
the funny thing is, there are so many people that say that this did not happen, but there's another guy out there who has a channel on Hollywood deaths. His name's Scott Michaels, and he does a channel called Dearly Departed. And he had the guy that was the manager of the cemetery when Richard Poncher was put in there,
Uh-huh.
and he confirmed that he is face down in the crypt above Marilyn Monroe.
That
Because he said that once they put him in there, after everybody left after hours, him and a few of the other the family members took him back out of there and flipped him over. So
oh,
he
so
was
they
actually
turned
there
him
that day.
okay.
Yeah, he was there that day, and he actually had a hand in it.
Oh
And
wow.
he confirmed that happened.
So this guy, his final wishes was to be buried face down. He's over.
Yep,
So I'm gonna let me pull.
face down.
There's Marilyn
Joe
Monroe.
DiMaggio actually sold him his plot, and I want to say he paid $75,000 for that plot. He has that one and the one next to it for his wife, and he told his wife that he would come back and haunt her if she didn't honor his wishes. And she did honor his wishes, but after the fact, she tried to sell his crypt on eBay, and she was going to move him out of the one that he's in now and into hers, but bidding went to something like $4 million, and then eBay canceled the auction, and so it never sold. So he's still in there, and his wife is next to him in the crypt above Hugh Hefner.
Now this was his wife. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Or okay, yeah. And so she, yeah. I remember I just watched that one recently. And so
because she wanted to sell the crypt because he left her a Beverly Hills mansion that was not paid off, and she couldn't afford to keep it, so she was trying to sell the crypt to keep her house.
gotcha.
But that didn't end up working, and eBay didn't think too highly, I guess, of her trying to sell a crypt on eBay. So
I wonder
that
what their problem was with that. I mean,
I don't know.
is it against
I'm
anything
guessing
or
it was probably against their policies, or they were afraid of fraud, or who knows. I mean, if you pay $4 million for something, how are you going to pay for it too?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, just we'll meet up or something,
Yeah,
right?
it's like sent PayPal me $4 million.
Yeah, exactly. I'm waiting for that to go through. No, man, that is an incredible story, man.
It
And
is, and a
so
lot of people don't think that it's a real story, but I mean, if you look into it and you talk to people that were there that day, it definitely is a real story.
yeah, yeah, and it seems like I've heard it before. You know
Yeah,
that story.
it's been around, but it's only in recent years that it's actually been confirmed. Before that, it was kind of a myth that not a lot of people believe, but yeah, now there's been a couple people that were there that day that have confirmed it, including somebody who worked at the cemetery at the time.
That's amazing. So they put him in regular at first, just to for all appearances, and then
Yeah,
after everybody jetted, they
they
flipped him
turned him
over
upside
and
down.
on.
They turned him upside down, and he
That's
hasn't been touched since.
that is something else, man. That really,
Yeah.
really is. And so that's an interesting area in general. So you have this couple above him, above Maryland, and
Hmm.
then you've got Marilyn Monroe there, and next to her is Hugh Hefner. Was
Yep.
that something that happened, like, that was planned out or anything? Or
Yeah, he actually paid for that crypt back, I think, in the early '90s, if I remember right. But
okay,
yeah, that was his wish to be buried next to Marilyn. The weird thing is that the two of them, she was in the first issue of Playboy, but the
hmm
two of them never met, and I don't believe he ever paid for the rights to those photos.
oh
And
wow,
she always had regrets about that being in there. She always had animosity about that happening because it was against her wishes to be in the magazine, and that ended up
oh
being what started his whole empire.
right, right. Wow, I'm surprised there was no big lawsuits or anything, like
Yeah, when it came to Marilyn, though, I don't know if she really had any heirs or anybody after she passed to really stand up for her or anything.
man, that's even more interesting. So I believe that you said this is the one of the most visited uh
Yeah,
resting
I think
places.
I think Elvis is number one, and I
Okay.
think she's either two or three.
Wow, man, that's very interesting. Here's another one that you visited. That's a huge one.
Yep, he's in Kentucky. That's at Cave Hill in Louisville, Kentucky. And
Nice.
that's a pretty neat one because that monument that's on the screen is at the top of the hill, and his actual grave is about halfway down. So
Okay.
that's a pretty interesting place. When I was there, it was raining like crazy, so it was really hard to shoot that video, but I did the best that I could with it.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, the I'm telling you, for everyone, if you haven't gone over to his channel, please go over there and check it out because I mean your videos, they're great, man. I mean,
I
this one,
appreciate that.
oh man, Ella Fitzgerald, I love Ella Fitzgerald, man, and what a great video, man.
Yeah,
Really,
thank
really
you.
good.
That was she's at let's see, she's at I think she's at Inglewood Park Cemetery too, and so is Ray Charles.
Okay.
And I went there on one day because it was just a couple months ago, and I had never been to that one before. But there's a handful of people there like them too, and there's that's where Sugar Ray Robinson was, and a
Hmm.
few other people. And I was tracking down as many of them as I could before a flight because it's like 2 miles from LAX. And I tried to shoot as many videos there as I could. And as far as the OJ Simpson stuff, um, Robert Kardashian and Johnny Cochran are both buried there too.
Right. I remember seeing those on there also. I guess if they're all in that area, you're gonna end up just like Chicago with the mob guys. You're gonna get a
Yeah.
bunch of people in that one area like that. Man.
Oh yeah.
So interesting. I bet that makes it uh convenient and fun when you're doing a video if you got a bunch of
It
people.
is. A lot of times it's I always felt kind of awkward doing videos in cemeteries, but they are the videos that I have a lot of interest in doing, in telling people's stories, and they seem to be the videos that everyone wants to see too. But you always feel like kind of a jerk when you're walking by and doing, cemetery shots and or doing a video or something, and then you see somebody that's having a funeral over here, and it's like you don't want them to see you, and you don't want to be in the way, and
Right,
it can be a little bit awkward, but
right.
they are the interesting videos because everybody deserves to be remembered, especially these old school stars that people have forgotten about.
Definitely, yeah. And that's really cool that you do that. I'm gonna pull one. I can't see which one this is. I'm gonna pull it up and see. Oh, that's that same one with the full uh picture of it, man. That's
Yeah.
that's incredible. Did you ever see the one I saw this on a guy that does cemetery videos where the guy I think he donated a bunch of money to this cemetery and so he built his own mausoleum with a statue of himself reading a book at the top of it or something. Have you ever seen that one?
Um, that almost sounds like how Al Jolson's is.
This guy wasn't famous at all. He was
Oh,
strictly just a guy in that area, and he wanted to be able to look over the cemetery was his thing.
I'm not sure whose that was.
I'm
It
gonna have to
does
figure it
sound
out. Yeah.
familiar.
Okay.
While we're on the topic, have you seen Al Jolson's?
No, I have not.
You
I
should
have
look
not.
that up. That's probably the most impressive one I've ever seen in my life.
Is that right? Wow.
Yeah,
Is it a
he had
standalone?
it's he's at the top of the hill, but then there's a waterfall that goes all the way down the hill to the entrance of the cemetery.
Maybe that's the one I watched yesterday. Does it have, is it like a little water strip in front of
Yeah,
it? Okay,
yeah.
I did just watch that yesterday. I couldn't think, I've watched so many, I couldn't even remember. Okay,
And
that is
that
very,
water strip is probably geez, 60, 70, 80 feet long,
it's
and
huge.
it just goes down the hill.
That is that's very incredible. Now, how do they do the upkeep for something like that? Is the person
You
responsible
know,
for?
I've been curious how they do that too. I really have no idea because those have been bought and paid for years and years and years ago.
Right.
And when you walk through some of these cemeteries, it doesn't seem like there's very many plots still available. So you do kind of wonder how, like, who pays for the upkeep and how that all works. But I've been
Sure.
curious about the same thing, and I've yet to find an answer to it.
Yeah, because you can't just leave a stream of water going there unattended. I mean, it'll
No,
be terrible. I mean, imagine, it could dry out. Is it moving water?
yeah,
And that, yeah, I mean, so you got to have pumps going. There,
oh yeah,
somebody's paying electricity. I mean,
yeah. I'm sure that thing costs quite a bit to keep running by itself.
sure, yeah, algae and who knows whatever. Man, that,
Yeah,
that now I got to find out that. Man, I'm gonna have to look that one up, man.
it
That's
is interesting. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know why he had such a thing done. I mean, he was a huge star in like the 30s and 40s, but
Right.
nowadays nobody knows who he is. I mean, you mention Al Jolson to somebody and they have no clue.
No, no. Most people, I would imagine, most people won't. And it's funny because I just watched that one like last night, so I know. Once you started describing it, I remembered who you're talking about. But yeah, that
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
that is, and I guess that something like that just really blows my mind. I mean, that's
Mhm.
next level, you know, beyond anything, beyond
It is.
just a statue
And
like
some
that.
of these, when you think of how long ago they were made, they don't make a lot of really impressive monuments anymore. Most of them that you
Right.
see are from 100 plus years ago.
Almost all of them. I don't see
Yeah,
any
you,
newer
you don't.
ones.
Yeah, you really don't see much for modern ones that are elaborate like that.
Right, right. I visited one of the oldest cemeteries near my area, and the mausoleums, and it's the area where these were almost all Sicilians or Italians, and the mausoleums were just incredible, man. I couldn't believe it, and you just don't see it anymore. You don't see that
No,
type of.
it's only in the older cemeteries, but they're interesting to look at.
Oh
And
yeah,
some of those you can tell in some of those cemeteries, the mausoleums are beautiful, but you can tell they haven't been opened in 30, 40 years, and
oh
you can tell that they haven't been kept up.
no, not at all. I mean, not even. uh I mean, you would, at least in my opinion, I would think like a power wash and stuff like that on something that nice. I mean,
You'd think. And I'm
just to
sure some
keep.
cemeteries do it, but it's clear that some don't.
No, yeah, these, some of these were had all kinds of stuff wrong with them. You know what I mean? Cracks and things, and one door was open, and stuff like that. So it's sad. I hate to see that. That's something I don't like to see. Uh,
Yeah, and sometimes you'll go into a mausoleum, a regular mausoleum, and you'll see, face plates that are cracked or chipped, and
right,
sometimes you'll see stuff that fluids leaking on the
right.
ground, and I mean that's more rare to see, but I mean you
Sure.
do see it.
Yeah, I've seen videos where people visited somewhere and it was like that, and some of them were even condemned or
Yeah,
something. So yeah, you don't. That's sad. That's terrible to see some. And I tell you what, in other countries, have you ever visited any in other countries?
not yet. I'm hoping
Okay,
to, but as of now, I haven't.
yeah, those some of the ones in other countries are totally like over the top and different. I saw a bunch of glass face ones that you don't see here.
Hmm.
Uh, that you can see in and stuff like
Yeah,
that.
there's some interesting ones out in different countries.
Right, right. How about New Orleans? Have you visited any in New
Not
Orleans?
yet, but that's probably going to be one of the next ones I do.
Very cool. I think I've visited some in New Orleans. Very nice. Do you have any like bucket list or holy grail cemeteries that you'd like to visit that you haven't?
Probably the biggest one that I want to do now is, I think it's called Queen of Heaven, in New York. There's a
Okay.
lot of people there. I've been to Arlington Cemetery, but not before I did. That was well before I started the channel. I'd like to do some things there. Um, yeah, there's still quite a few that I want to do that I haven't made it around to. So
Got you.
there's no shortage of places on my list to check out and still do videos on.
Right. That's man. Well, just a couple more questions. Is one of them I wanted to ask you is, do you have any advice for someone who's starting a channel? Because you've done so well with yours. Any advice for anyone?
I would say just start. The Everybody wants to wait until they have the right camera gear, the right audio equipment, the right everything. You don't need the best equipment. Some of my first videos were shot on garbage cameras with lousy audio, but I would say just don't wait till tomorrow. Start today, and your videos will get better the more you do. Practice. And the other thing is that always stay true to who you are, the messages you want to send, the stories you want to tell. There's always going to be people that comment on your stuff with negativity and that try to change how you do what you do. And sometimes it's kind of an ongoing struggle to brush that off. But you have to remember that you started a channel for one purpose, and you have to stick to that, and not let people's negativity tear you down, I guess.
Right.
Because pretty much without fail, there's at least one negative comment a day, or somebody saying, this is disgusting what you're putting out there, or you're a ghoul, or you sound like Kermit the Frog, or there's all
Oh
this
man.
different stuff. Like, there's a lot of people that really don't like when you put yourself out there, but there's way more people that enjoy what I have done than have kind of torn it down. So I'm grateful for that. But when it comes to starting a channel, just start today and do as much as you can. I'd say first 50 videos are probably not going to be very good. I know mine weren't. But you keep getting better. And
Right.
when you look back, you'll look at videos you've done a year ago and you'll say, I wish I would have done this better. And I'm still like that for videos I did last week.
Sure.
So you're always improving, but the biggest thing I'd say is just start now. Don't wait for the best equipment, or it's easy to put things off in life, but really just start today.
Okay. That's great advice, man. Because I think a lot of people do that.
Yeah,
Figure.
I know I did when I started, because I didn't like the sound of my voice. I didn't like the look of my face, especially on camera, and I didn't want to start doing it. And one day I came up with a video, and I thought, I'm just going to share this and see what it does, and
Oh
I
man.
never really looked back.
Good thing you did. You know what? I'm telling you, man, when I started watching your videos, I thought your voice was excellent for
I,
the, you know what I mean?
it,
It's
it took me so long to be okay with how I sounded. I always had kind of a complex about it, and then I would get the at least once a week somebody says, "Oh, look, Kermit the Frog has a channel," and they'd say certain things, but when you put yourself out there, you're going to get that regardless. There's
right,
always going to be people that are miserable with their lives, or that just are looking for someone to pick on,
right.
and you really just can't care.
No, you can't. If you're gonna start a channel, if you're gonna put yourself out there, like you say, you do have to know in advance people are gonna say, I get, oh good gosh, man, the stuff people say,
Oh
I
yeah,
just, yeah, most
we
of the
all
time I just laugh.
Yeah, we all get it, but that's the best thing you can do, is by not letting that stuff get the best of you,
Right,
because that's
right.
that's what they're trying to do. And if they irritate you for 1 minute, then that makes their whole day, and that's
Day
why give
one.
that to them?
Yeah, oh for
Like,
sure.
it's different if it makes your day by giving them something good, or by giving them a good memory, or teaching them something they might not have known otherwise. But if they're just trying to be rude or rotten, you just can't let that get to you.
No, you can't. You can't absorb it. And I mean, if you're gonna do that, you shouldn't get on.
No, absolutely not.
That
And some people get it a lot worse than others, but I don't know one person that does this that doesn't have at least a small army of people that are giving them a hard time on a daily basis.
at least trying to.
Yeah,
No, man,
it definitely happens.
For sure, and across the board, because I've talked to people from different genres and everything else, and every one of them has, like you say, a small army of people. They're just like, you suck. This.
There's always going to be a couple.
Yeah, that's just how it is. I'm gonna pull up this one too, man. This picture that's your Facebook.
That's my Facebook page.
Okay, so
right now I have a Facebook page. We have an Instagram account. We have a TikTok account, and the YouTube channel is what I put the most effort into.
Man, let me tell you, here, I think this is the banner for your YouTube.
Yep, that's the YouTube channel.
Man, I'm telling you right now, if you don't do anything else today, go over there and subscribe to this channel. You will not regret it. I mean, you have got some awesome videos, man, for real.
I appreciate that.
For real.
I love doing Hollywood. I love doing history. I've done a lot of presidential videos, museums. I mean, you name it, I'm trying to do it. Right. If it's something that's interested me or something that I want to document somehow, it'll end up on the channel.
I mean, that's the thing. You cover such a wide range of stuff, which is really cool.
And not everything does well. There will be some videos that I'll post that I think will do well, and nobody watches it. And then there will be videos that I put up just because it's something I like, but I don't think anyone else will. And those ones take off. You never know what the audience is going to appreciate.
That 100%. And then sometimes I wonder if it has anything to do with just the way the algorithm is, or how it gets pushed, or whatever, because
it must. I still don't understand. I still don't understand how the algorithm works, or what pushes one video and not another, or it's a mystery.
Yeah, I think it is. But let me tell you again, like I'm saying, was super impressed by your channel. Everything about it's so professional. Your videos are so interesting. I love the shorts and the videos. They're great, man. And
I appreciate that.
And is there anything you want to tell people, or anything before we jet, man?
Well, I would say if you're thinking about starting a channel, just, don't be afraid to put yourself out there, but have a thick skin. And if you're somebody that just enjoys Hollywood, enjoys cemeteries, and just wants to kind of mentally check out after a hard day of work, and just kind of watch something that's a little bit mindless, but maybe want to learn something, check out our channel. Because I always try to put up stuff that I would want to watch myself, as being somebody who loves history and Hollywood and all that kind of stuff. So that's always kind of how I've tried to do it, is making things that I would watch.
Right. I'm gonna pull it up one more time. This is your banner for YouTube.
Yep, that's it.
And yeah, man. Hey, thanks so much, man, for taking the time to do this with me, man.
It's not a problem. I enjoyed it.
Really appreciate it. Hang out one second. I'm gonna finish this up, and then I'll talk to you in a minute.
Will do.
Backstage for a second. I want to let everybody know I appreciate you watching this video. Please make sure and like, subscribe, and all that stuff. As I hit certain points, I'm going to be doing some different giveaways of different stuff. So all you got to do is be subscribed, be in the chat, and I'm going to pull out some names. And I'm such a small channel, you got a high chance of winning. So, be in there. Once again, Jeff, thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Not a problem at all.